I think he's ready. You think he's ready?
And I think he needs no introduction, right?
Although he needs no introduction, we're going to give him one, and we're going to give him a whole lot of praise tonight. He's not going to be comfortable with that as well. But
does he have a bourbon?
He does.
Okay. Whose official job is to make sure that, okay, Angie's on it. All right.
We went up to Mr. Frazier's office, and Mr. Frazier commissioned that piece that people saw on the way in and shared a bourbon in his honor just a few minutes ago. So. Welcome, folks. Welcome to our special program tonight, celebrating Ed Hamilton. His life is what we're celebrating here tonight. As many of you know, our partners at Bellarmine University are putting on another program as part of the Veritas program. That is Thursday night, and that is celebrating his art. Many of the great commissions throughout Louisville and throughout the whole country, frankly. My name is Andy Treinen. I'm the president and CEO here at the Frazier History Museum. I'd like to welcome you to the Frazier. For those of you who have not been here, welcome. It is wonderful to have you in the house. I am co-hosting with my good friend, Rachel Platt, reunited, as we like to say. We used to work together at WHS 11, and now she is our Director of Community Engagement here at the Frazier and doing an amazing job. All of you, we've got friends, we've got family, and we just have fans of Ed Hamilton, and frankly, that's probably where you fit in, right, Rachel?
Van, done many, many stories with you throughout my career. Following your incredible career, even got to judge a dance contest. Does anybody remember that? Was anybody there with me?
Did he do that move that he just did right here?
Well, first of all, I voted for him and he won. Right. I mean, and we were over there going, who did you beat? We're not going to name names. We're not going to name names on that. Ed is truly a Renaissance man. I know everybody agrees with me on that. I'm a longtime fan of his incredible work. You signed one of your posters of a sculpture that I have hanging in my hallway. You did that many, many years ago. I think everything about you, I like to say, when I go into your studio, and Hannah, I know you had mentioned it too, and after you did that, I said, I haven't been in a while. And I will say, going to your studio to me is like a religious experience. I don't know if anybody else feels that way. It reflects your journey. It reflects the journey of the people you bring to life. And when you step into that space, you feel all of those connections. We are here tonight, all of us, because you have impacted us in some way, and we are here to celebrate the artist and the man.
So let's celebrate. The Frazier History Museum has a long history with this man right here, Ed Hamilton. You saw his sculpture when we first came in, Migration to the West. That is something that Mr. Frazier asked him to do when the museum first opened. And it's sitting right in the middle of Cool Kentucky. This is our Cool Kentucky exhibition, and it's basically everything that's cool about the state of Kentucky. So we've got Jennifer Lawrence and George Clooney. We've got Garrett Morgan and Artis Gilmore. We've got Ed Hamilton. What's cooler than this man right here, right?
It's mentioned my friend Forrest Boone because he made the monolith that the piece that's on.
Forrest Boone.
Yeah, it's right there.
He's right there.
My man.
Forrest Boone had a hand in that.
He's had a hand in that, and we're going to hear from him a little bit later in the program. Ed's also represented upstairs on the second floor in our West of Ninth exhibit. His family is represented there. His father, Hamps, as he was going off to war, is pictured there, and his mother and his father, working on Old Walnut Street. So all an important part of the fabric of this community that we live in, and we are so honored to have you here and a part of this program tonight. We also have a long list of guests who are going to come up here and I think toast you, but maybe some of them will roast you. We'll find out. But the first part of our program is a discussion with Ed himself, and we are encouraged and excited to be a part of that.
His beautiful wife, Bernadette, his partner in every sense of the word. Right? Thank you. And his lovely daughter, Kendra, traveling in for this program. Her husband with us as well tonight. Before we get to that, we have one introduction that we have to make, and then we're going to start the conversation.
Yeah, I want to bring our partners in this venture to this microphone, and for those of you who are speaking later in the program, this is where you'll come to talk. They're going to talk about the famous sculptures on Thursday night that Ed is known for, from Abe Lincoln behind us to Booker T. Washington, Joe Louis, MLK, the Amistad, the Spirit of Freedom, just to name a few. That program, 7 o'clock in the Frazier Hall on campus at Bellarmine University. Mr. Frazier, again, had a major impact on this city, donated over $300 million to this community and made it a better place. So thank you to Bellarmine for being a part of this. And with that, I would like to introduce Abigail Walsh, the coordinator of the Veritas Society at Bellarmine.
For 55 and older lifelong learners. They come to campus to take classes, go on field trips, go to lectures. They really just embody that goal of enriching their minds and their spirits throughout their life, even past their education. And I really think, just from what I've heard about Mr. Hamilton, that really just that embraces everything that people say about going into his studio, is that lifelong learning that he lives for. So thank you all, and thank you to the Frazier staff, to my committee that has been working with me on this project at Bellarmine and with the development team, and then thank you to Ed and your family for letting us honor you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right,
now the part of the program that everyone looks forward to except the person who's in the hot seat. We're going to have Ed talk about himself.
well, and this is your life, and we're going to start with...
Pay no attention to the future sculptor up there. Pay no attention.
Two and a half years old, yeah. What kind of a child were you? How would you describe yourself as a 2.5-year-old?
Oh, well, I can't remember that far back, but I was a little ladies' man. I had a little tricycle. Yeah, I think you got
Is that why your shirt was off?
I don't know if you got that picture or not, but I'm in front of Dad's shop. And my little friends that grew up in the neighborhood with me, and I'm on the back of the tricycle wrapping my hand around this lovely little lady. You know.
I think that's the one picture I left out.
Oh, no.
I know it. I'm so sorry. Now, where did the nickname Biff come from?
That was a bit, my mom.
Your mom?
Yeah, she called, I don't know where it came from. I had to live with that name all my life. And if anybody calls me that, then we know we go way back. But if you call me that and I didn't know you then, you can't do that.
Anybody know his nickname was Biff way back? Okay, oh, all right, we've got one up front here.
And you really don't know what the...
No, I really don't. It's just something she came up with, and I had to live with it.
Tell us about your parents. We're looking at them right there. Amy and Ham.
That's Amy, my mom. She grew up here, was raised here in Louisville, down in what they call Little Africa, down in Parkland area. And then my dad was born in Bardstown, Kentucky, Nelson County. And somehow they got together, and he came back from World War I. And then he opened up a shop called Your Shop, just a cleaning and pressing business. Okay?
And on that picture, it's down there in the front, right?
Yeah. If you look on that picture, you see the white area in front of the building, and that's when they remodeled the shop, and it's called Your Valet Shop. And what we had was a 3 barber chair, shoe shine parlor in the front, and then the cleaning and pressing was in the back. And so I was always in and out of the shop and getting in all of his stuff. He had an old Singer sewing machine that I would play, you know, that pump, and I'd get those big pinking shears he had, and I'd cut cardboard tin cans and stuff like that. He said, boy, put my scissors down. You're going to ruin them. You know, a tailor has to have sharp shears to cut good fabric, you know. I was always into his button boxes and stuff like that.
But let's talk about your mom, because she was a barber.
Your mom was a barber,
unusual.
and your dad was a tailor.
Yes.
And that made up the family business that you grew up in.
Yes, she became what I would consider a pioneer at the time. Most women were beauticians, and she decided she was going to be a barber. And so she graduated from barber school and started cutting hair with the men that they hired to cut hair in the barber shop. And who else we got?
And a family affair.
Yeah. If you're looking at the picture on your left is Dad, and then I never knew the guy in the middle. I just called him Shorty. But that's my Uncle Jack with the hat on. That was my dad's. He came from a 9 brother and sister family out of Bardstown, Kentucky, and he had 2 brothers that went into business with him. Uncle Jack, and then was Uncle Charles. And I think you might have a picture with all of them standing in front of the shop. I don't know. I can't
remember which ones. I know this is more where you lived,
now,
right?
That's 7th and Walnut Street. And that building on the corner there, we lived on the 3rd floor. And I would matriculate down the wooden banister all the way from the 3rd floor down, riding about, because it was this, big, heavy stuff. And then I'd just walk down to the shop, and I had a key to get back in, so I was kind of the original little latchkey kid.
And your mom was ahead of her time, because like all these men want to come to her to get their hair cut.
Well, I would too. Yeah.
Like what? Well, there might be something there.
Particularly when you turn the chair,
Tell us how life on Walnut Street shaped you.
I was very secure in that space. Secure meaning I didn't want for anything. I had everything I needed. We had our own theaters. We had our own restaurants. We had all the bars you could use, but I couldn't go to the bars, of course, And the one particular bar that's well noted was the Top Hat Bar. And when I would walk by the Top Hat Bar on 8th Street, I would jump up because they had the diamond window in the door, see? So I would kind of jump up and see who is in there, Couldn't go in there, I was too young. But it was a great time for me to be growing up in this insulated community, We had all the people that worked down in the department stores, and the one thing that really was fascinating to me was my dad had a billiard table in the back of the shop. And so after hours, the men who worked downtown as porters and waiters and stuff, they would come down, and it was a T-ball billiard table. And I would set the table and get a dime or a quarter, for that time, set the tee up and get the balls ready. And this one particular gentleman by the name of Gandhi, where's Ken Clay?
Right over here.
You remember the photographer Gandhi around on 6th Street? He was Jamaican, and he was a wonderful photographer, but he was wild when it came to playing pool. And when he would do this and get his aim going, and when he hit it, boom, he'd rake the stick.
He was wild with the stick.
Yeah, I think, oh Lord, you got to get out of his way, But he was something. But it was really great to see that kind of energy being generated while I was growing up there, And in Derby time, Cadillac Road, Dad would put together a big wash tub full of beer and pops and stuff. And I'd get in there and I'd drink so much pop I'd be sick by the end of the day, Mom sold chitlins suppers. And people would come down and buy, the suppers and stuff like that.
We got another picture of you and your dad there.
Yeah, that's my dad. He's giving me a bottle, it looks like.
And Bernadette and Kendra, have you heard all of these stories? Have you? That's why they're just sitting there going, we've heard this one too. We've heard this one too.
They came to you at different times, in different eras anyway. How do you guys see that these stories have shaped Ed?
Well, when he would tell us the story, especially, with his mother being a barber out of her time, I told Ed, I said, the reason why her business was so good, she wore Taboo. How many people know about Taboo? It's a perfume, it's old, but it smells mighty good. and she's kind of short, so she's always reaching over the men.
So you're saying there was method to the madness?
Yes,
just a little bit.
She was doing. Yeah.
All right, we're going to skip forward just a little bit and talk about the budding artist. Tell us about this. So this is as you're entering Parkland Junior High and Shawnee High School. Teachers started noticing you and your talent, right?
I was at Parkland Junior High, and I really want to stress how important teachers are. Without a good teacher who can recognize your talent, then you don't know if you're going to be able to do anything or not. Anyway, long story short, this wonderful art teacher that I had at Parkland Junior High, her name was Harriet O'Malley, and she saw something. And I never will forget the day she told me, I'm going to call your mother. Now, the only thing I could...
I'm in trouble.
I'm like, now what did I do something wrong? No, you didn't do anything wrong. I want to make sure that you are able to do this, okay? So it started there. Now, I think by growing up as an only child and having to deal with my own time, I was always doing something, drawing. And the good news was that my mom always kept me supplied with paper and pens and pencils and stuff like that. See, never once did she say, "No, boy, you're not going to be able to do nothing like that. We need to go put you in something else." So when Harriet got hold of me, and of course, there's some high school. Oh, I'm jumping the gun. I got to get to high school.
I'm going to switch there.
Yes.
I'm going to switch you to high school.
Oh, okay. Now.
Weren't you friendliest?
Yes. Yeah, that's my yearbook picture. Matriculated to Shawnee High School from Parkland. And the other teacher who said, you've got something, and she helped me to develop it. I was not on a college track to go to school after high school, 12th grade, and she said, you're going to art school. Now, what she did was, as artists, as students in the art room, every week we had to do a sketch of something and have a notebook. Then we had to do reports on art, basic art, Degas, Cézanne, all the Impressionist people, Picasso, stuff like that. And I think the sketchbook, did you bring the sketchbook?
Oh, we got all that over there.
I got a facsimile of the
reproduction of your sketchbook,
Yeah,
the two paintings there. Are they paintings or?
Those are paintings. Those are tempera paint.
Those are both
water,
Ed's from Shawnee High School.
Yeah.
So make sure you get up in his first sculpture from high school.
So when you look at that globe with that clay figure in it, that is actually from my 12th grade class that I did. And then in the sketchbook, she would go through your sketchbook and say, okay, I like that, or for a painting. And so the second painting, the one with the horses, with the jockeys, there's a sketch in the sketchbook that turned into that painting.
So she challenged you to take that sketch and turn it into a painting.
Yes. So armed with those paintings and clay pieces, that's how I got into art school. I
want to hear from Kendra before we move too forward in the program, because we didn't hear from you about, your dad's stories. So, and I'm a father of 2 daughters. I kind of know, what that's like. When did you get a sense that people knew who your dad was or were talking about your dad?
I would say probably after the Booker T. Washington installation. That was when I noticed the attention from the community at large. And I was only 6, maybe, turning 7, when we went down there, to Hampton. And so, but before that even, I was at the studio quite a bit. So there was always folks coming in and out. I went to Montessori school right behind St. Martin down on Shelby. And I only stayed half a day. So Dad would come and get me like around 12. And I would either go to his studio, and I had my own little chair, my own little desk, and hang out with him and keep myself occupied with clay and watercolors, crayons, all of that stuff the kids do. Or I would go to my great granny's house, Anna Bishop, and I would go down there and get fattened up and take my naps. So between the ages of, like 2, 3, 4, I'm hanging out with him pretty much every day, every other day, and then of course we're at home. He was Mr. Flexibility. Mom was teaching school. I was with him a lot, so I was a daddy's girl, of course, because we had a lot of time we spent together. And the stories, as I got older, I'd start to hear the stories about Grandma Amy and, Granddaddy. He was gone. He died years and years and years before I was a thought, even before Eddie was even born, So that was another thing. But I always had my grandmother, so I would go to Grandma Amy's house too, and just hang out there and just do what kids do, playing in her big old huge backyard she had. I always said, you could put a pool back here. She never did it. She never did it.
When you found out he was kind of a big deal,
did
you let him know, or did you just privately you take satisfaction in it?
I privately took satisfaction in it, but realizing one thing, and a lot of people may not realize this, I'm 44. This is all I've ever known him to do. He's always been an artist. For me, my brother came up during what these two called the lean times, the one bedroom apartment with the bathroom down the hallway and all of that good stuff. So my brother, they had about 10 years to kind of figure things out before I showed up. And so, I've never been, some people are jealous of their parents or spouses even, their brother, their sister, whoever. That's never been a thing for me. I knew when I was a kid that I was not going to be an artist. That just wasn't my thing. I mean, my wall of fame is still hanging up there from when I was, 3 and 4 years old. So that was the best I could do. But, my talent matriculated into music, into business, and that's where I stay in my lane there. But, knowing he's a big deal, I've always been proud to know that, but it's never been an issue within the family. It's never been anything like that.
Well, Ed, let's talk about the fact, because after high school, then in those years not too long after, I think in the book the title was Love is in the Air. So tell us about the first time you met Bernadette. We're going to see what you thought of her and then what she thought of you.
Take a little sip before I get into this.
He needs a little bourbon.
Behave, Walter.
I was at art school. Bernadette was working she was in U of L, working for, Dean Huffman? In what they called the Bigelow Hall building. Now, downstairs in Bigelow Hall was the cafeteria.
Called it the Sub.
They called it the Sub. And I grew up with a gentleman, your friend Sharon Clark, who was the daughter of Harron Clark, who was one of the police officers on the beat on Walnut Street. Anyway, long story short, I took off for lunch one day. Now, remember, I'm an artist in art school.
I'm going to show what you look like about that time, Ed.
Oh, no. Lord.
Looks like a cat's, Bernadette.
Tell me about it.
Didn't have no gray hair. All right. So I take off from school. I walk over to Bigelow Hall and going to get a little lunch. Now, this is the 70s now. You got to remember this is this is 67. 67, 66, 67. I got a army jacket on, black horn rim glasses with a Band-Aid holding the middle of it together because it broke. Hair parted this way down, paint all over me, plaster, you know, the whole thing.
Smelling like linseed oil.
Smelling linseed oil. So I get over to the sub, and I greet my folks, you know, my peeps over there, and all of a sudden I hear this somebody walking across the tile floor in these high heels. I said to Sharon, I said, Sharon, who is that? She said, oh, that's my friend Bernadette. I said, well, hell. I said, well, hell, the name alone was enough for me. Look.
Oh, Lord, my whole life.
So I go over, I said, Miss Bernadette, I'm Eddie. She's looking at me like.
Thumbs down.
Wait a minute, gets good now. So I'm thinking, okay, that's all right. So, you know, they used to have the dances on the weekend down there. So I said, Bern, would you like to go to one of the dances? You know? And I guess she said, okay. And so when I showed up at her house, I was sharp as a tack, boy. She opened the door and said, damn.
Okay. Bernadette, did you really say that?
No.
Okay. All right.
But he was.
It sounded
he was
like
thumbs up.
It turned from that to that.
He didn't smell. He looked good. And then when we got to the dance, he knew how to dance. He could do the splits. He played the drums.
Wait, he could do the
I thought I was with James Brown.
So anyway, that's how it happened.
So from there, though, you were a couple.
From there,
and-
we became a couple. We got married, and then our lives went on.
Yeah.
How many years married now?
55.
55. We've got a couple of family pictures that we wanted to show. There,
Oh, that's our son.
Eddie.
He passed January 2021. But we were in Spain.
Yeah.
We
And all of our friends that were in Spain with us, hold up your hands.
12. Look, oh,
12. Mighty 12.
It was a wonderful
oh,
trip.
it was wonderful.
Wonderful trip.
Kendra, what would you say? You've been front row seat to not 55 years of marriage, but what would you say
44.
44. What would you say the secret has been with them?
Oh, they are a team. If I've never seen a team before, they are truly a team. To this day, Mom has been behind the scenes business, contract review, account balancing, keeping things stable in between commissions, all of that. So Dad has always been able to do what he set out to do, which was to be an artist and be successful at it. I mean, he's had a career, his body of work speaks for itself. We're still what I call living in a legacy because he's still creating. So, communication, not that they don't bicker. They do bicker, but it's always been polite. It's always been very respectful. They don't argue, fuss, and fight. I've never seen them do any crazy stuff like that. But they have a way of balancing each other out that just makes everything very cohesive and just flow. And so you can't make it to 55 if that's not the case,
True.
Yeah.
True.
All right, let's take a step back. When you graduated from college, before your commissions, you were part of the Louisville Art Workshop.
Oh, yes.
And made many friendships from people who are here today.
Some of them are in this room.
Some of them are going to speak, and I can't wait to hear what they have to say.
You said this was really important for you.
Let me see. There's Duffy.
Duffy's here.
That's me. That's Merv Augustin. That's the late G.C. Kellerman Cox. That's a wonderful brother, Eugene Thomas, who's gone on to glory now. We just absolutely loved him. And then there's Dr. Bob Douglas. And then, if you've all heard of Bob Thompson, that's Robert Holmes, standing next to Bob. And these were all part of the old workshop era time. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go forward
we at?
because those folks changed your life.
Yes.
And so did this man. Tell us
Yes.
about your first encounter with Barney Bright.
That's Barney Bright, the only sculptor that I wanted to meet, and the only one at the time I think was only really making a living at sculpture here in this town. This one particular day, I was teaching ceramics and sculpture at Iroquois High School. Now it was '73. And of course, you know, the 70s was the Superfly era. So I had this huge coiffure afro, big wide collar and bell-bottom pants, that type of thing. Barney's studio was at 2031 Frankfurt Avenue, and the same building complex that his studio was in was King's Ceramic Shop. The only thing that separated King's Ceramic Shop and Barney's studio was a wall. So I was in King's Ceramic Shop procuring clay for class. And Daniel King, God bless his soul, he was an elderly gentleman. He just loved to talk. And we talked art, we talked worldly stuff. And I looked at my watch, I said, oh, Daniel, I gotta get out of here, man. I gotta get back to school. So I loaded up the car. I'm parked in the front of Barney's studio in the King Ceramic Shop. And I got in the car and I looked over at Barney's door. And I said, well, why don't you get out of the car and go over and knock on the door? Well, something would just not allow me to do it. I just didn't feel like I could get out of that car and go over there. One thing I'm thinking, well, here's this black guy with this big old afro, and he gonna look out the door and say, what? You know? So I'm sitting in the car, and just as I was getting ready to turn the key, start the car, he walked out his front door to check his mailbox, which was connected to the side of the building. I immediately opened the car door, walked over very carefully. I said, Mr. Bright, I'm Ed Hamilton.
Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Hamilton.
Yes, sir. And I think I said, I wonder if I might be able to see your studio. I'm not sure what I totally said, but what he said, sure, come on in. That was it. That was it. So I got in there and I think, oh my God, I'm smelling all these smells, wax. I'm seeing these clay figures, these heads, these bodies, these plasters, this stuff. And he said, well, where'd you go to school? I said, well, I went to the Art Center school. He said, I taught out there. I said, oh, really? He said, I saw a piece on a block out in front of the building. And I often said I'd like to tell that student, you had potential. I said, well, what did it look like? He said, well, it was kind of distorted, and one arm was going this way and stuff, and the head was going, well, what it was, I was very captivated by Rodin's works. And I had two disciplines that I was playing with. On one side, I was doing abstract works, but on the other side, I was doing realism. Now, that piece was actually his David that he did, not David, Adam and Eve. He did an Adam and Eve, and that was Adam. And he was kind of very distorted. If you know Rodin's works, there were times when he would really distort stuff, see? And I was just so into his stuff. I even tried to emulate his Gates of Hell in the back of the studio at school. Never did finish it. Well, of course, he never did finish it either. He worked for years on that darn thing. It was supposed to be a museum doors. That's what the gates of hell was supposed to be. Well, anyway, long story short, he said, yeah. I said, that was my piece. He said, well, I'll be darned. So he had a job getting ready to come in, a commission that he just got. And if you've ever come down from the west end to 6th Street on Chestnut Street, at 6th and Chestnut, there's the Federal Building, right? And out in front of the Federal Building, there's a plaza type. And there's a big, tall, winged horse called the River Horse. Yeah. And that River Horse was commissioned by the Binghams. And so he said, if I'm going to need some help. I said, Mr. Bright, I'm ready now. You have to ask me twice.
Was that you working on that one?
That's what I'm on.
Okay,
Look,
that's what I
so
thought.
he made the little marquette, then we scaled it up, and I made the armature and everything, and then we filled it with styrofoam, and what I'm doing there, mixing some resin to hold the styrofoam together before we put the clay on, see? And so that was my first job. No, it wasn't my first job. My first job was cleaning up the studio, and we had a dog named Whiner, and Whiner every night would not go out because he had a door to get out in the back. And every morning when I'd come in the studio, trail of, sweet, what's wrong with this dog?
So how
Evidence
long?
that the dog had been there. So you're inspired, and not long after that, you go out on your own in Booker T. Washington.
I stayed with Barney through the clock. You know the clock that he did, the big circle clock? And, interesting story about that. I made all the molds and the waxes on the figures that that's Booker T, ran around that circle clock. Now, he said, we used a foundry that was in Pontiac, Michigan, called the Fine Arts Foundry. And so he said, now look, I want you to take the waxes to the foundry, use my car. He had a huge station wagon, a Chevrolet station wagon. And we packed them up real nice in the station wagon and everything. He said, now look, don't stop, because we got to keep those waxes cool. See? And I said, no, ain't no problem. So it was myself, GC went with us, GC Cox, and my other friend who's passed on that was in school with me, Bill Eastridge, real nice guy. Anyway, so we in the car, we going up the highway. We get to Pontiac, Michigan, and what do you think happened? The fan belt broke. Now we're on the highway in this car in the middle of the day with these waxes in the back, thinking, oh my God, they're going to start, getting hot, getting warm. But luckily, it was just enough time by the sun was going down. So no cell phones, didn't have no way to call nobody. Luckily, a state trooper pulled up, said, what's going on here? Boy, what we doing? I said, well, officer, we're trying to get to the foundry at Pontiac, Michigan, and we got these art pieces, these waxes, and I'm trying to make sure they don't get distorted. And luckily, he said, well, I'll call a tow truck. And I guess maybe about an hour, tow truck pulled up, picked us up, pulled us in the Pontiac garage place, put the fan belt on, we were back on the road. So we got them there safe. All right. Got them there safe.
We're talking about Booker T.
Oh,
this
now,
was your first on your own, right?
Yes. Now, how this came about. See, it pays to have friends. Ken Young, the late Ken Young, who was a part of the workshop, and with all my elders, Ken Young, Bob Thompson, Sam Gilliam, Bob Douglas, Fred Bond, they all were of that generation. Ken would come home. He took off early on, went to Washington and became an exhibitor preparer at the Smithsonian Institute. So when we'd go to D.C., we'd visit him at Smithsonian or whatever, but he would come home on holidays because his parents still lived here in Louisville. Well, this one particular day, I get a letter in the mail, and this was from Hampton Institute, and they said they want to memorialize Booker T. Washington. Now, reason being, Booker T. graduated from Hampton Institute. And so I thought, oh my God. But in that letter it said, you came highly recommended by Kenneth Victor Young. Wow. Now, the only reason why that happened was because Ken Young ran into the museum lady on Hampton's campus at a museum conference in D.C., and she asked him, Ken, we need somebody to do a Booker T for us, but we can't seem to find, we've looked at some people, but we're not satisfied. He said, sure, call Ed Ham down in Louisville, Kentucky. And that's how it happened.
Wow, wow. We're going to jump forward to a couple that you have spiritual connections with. I said, give me two that you feel the most spiritual connections with, and this is one of them, your Amistad.
First choice here.
It's Amistad. And that was cast here in Louisville at Bright Foundry. And there's some folks here that worked at Bright Foundry. Where's my Tamina? Oh, there. She's a hell of an artist. Oh, yeah. We cast that. That was for the city of New Haven, Connecticut. And how I got that was I saw it, Earl Hooks, who was chairman of the art department at Fisk University in Nashville. We would go down to Nashville and visit, and then we'd go to Chattanooga because that's where Bernadette's family was from. So we'd do our holidays from Tennessee, from Nashville to Chattanooga and back. And so we were visiting with Earl one day, and Earl said, hey man, did you see this letter? I said, no, what is that? What's that? He said, are you looking for somebody to do a memorial on Joseph Cinque? Now, Joseph Cinque was his name given by the Spaniards who were on the Amistad schooner, but his African name was Sinbay P.A., okay? And of course, I didn't learn that until I had gotten involved with the project, and there was a professor of Mendi history who was a part of the process, and that's how I learned all about the Amistad. But anyway, long story short, I said, Bernadette, we got to get back to Louisville because the deadline for this thing is about a couple of weeks to get your stuff in. So we cut the vacation short, got back to Louisville, put our package together, slides, resume and all, and a month later, never heard a word. I said, well, maybe they just kicked our stuff out. I said, baby, call them. Tell them what they told you, babe.
Well, make a long story short, he's the only one that had submitted anything. So they were waiting on other submissions.
That's what happened. She said, oh no, you the only one that submitted. So I said, well, I get the job then, don't I? I got this. No, we got to put it back out again. So I had to compete with 4 other artists for this particular commission. It was between 5 of us, then it came down to 3, then it came down to 2, and then it came down to 1.
The one where it was supposed to be, but this process was emotional for you at a time.
Emotional in that this is not something that I got taught in school.
Right.
You know.
We'll go back
and
to
this is a historical piece simply because it's the first time a group of Africans were literally set free. And the only reason why they were literally set free was because they were literally kidnapped out of Africa. They were not slaves, as we know slavery. The only one that was not set free with this group of 53 Africans when the deal went down, and John Quincy Adams, the former president, took the case to the Supreme Court, and that's how they were literally set free. The little cabin boy who was born in America and was the slave of the Spaniards who controlled the schooner, was not allowed to go with them. They had to smuggle him out when they left to go back home.
We're going to jump to the next one. We're going to wrap this up here with a couple more things before we get to the speakers. We're going to take a short break and give everybody a second to stretch. This one, I'm going to go to a couple things because this was your Spirit of Freedom in Washington, D.C. That was the front and the back. But there was a connection you had with this particular gentleman. Tell us about that. You said every day you came to the studio, he seemed to be sweating.
Sweat, which led me to believe that the guys came off the platform at night, played cards, drunk a little beer, you know, prayed a little bit. Then by the time dawn came, we better get back up on here, this platform. And so when I uncover them, because I'm using water clay now, and you know, water clay is natural. It comes from the Mother Earth, see? So when I would uncover them, my boy had this nice beady sweat all over him. I'm like, something going on here, you know. But yeah, that's what happened.
I love that one.
Right now you're working on David Jones of Humana, and you actually showed me a little sneak peek, and I will say Rachel came to visit you in the studio and you covered him up because
you put a jacket on and you're a former reporter.
She's a reporter. She's like to break the news. Tell us about that project.
Well, when Humana gave a memorial thing over at the Humana building, several years ago, I had no idea that they were going to announce that they wanted me to do this. So I was kind of hit with this while we were there. I mean, nobody said anything until I heard it from them. You know?
It's tough to say no when they do it in front of an audience like that.
So I'm thinking to myself, are y'all sure? You know, So we're working on him. He's going to be Waterside Park between Brook and First Street. Right adjacent to Routes 101.
Right here, Lamont Collins, right here. I want to do one thing before we take a short break, because at 57 years old, there was a huge revelation in your life. It was as your mother, Amy, her health started to fail, and there was a discovery under your mother's mattress, and it led to an unbelievable discovery for you at 57. Tell us about that, and I'm going to go ahead and show her, okay?
How blessed one could be for the parents that raised me, okay? But how blessed it was that I found out that my mother had raised me was not my biological mother. So she had to go to the hospital, and I was looking around through her stuff to find all the hospital cards and stuff like that. So I was gathering up things, and you know, some folks hide stuff under things. And so I just happened to lift up the tick of the bed where she slept, and I saw this little change purse. And I didn't think nothing about it. And I had the bag, I just threw it in the bag. We got to the hospital, you know, they keep you forever. I didn't get out of the hospital with her until about 2 o'clock that morning. Came home, got me a little bourbon, sat down, you know, chilled out. It wasn't until the next day that I started going through all that stuff. And there was that little change purse. Oh, what's this? It's a folded up piece of paper. Folded up about 4 or 5 different ways. Yellowish. I know it's old. Opened it up. Oh my God. It was the original adoption papers.
And then come to find out, you had siblings.
Yeah, I had 2 brothers and 2 sisters.
And you got to meet your birth mother,
Virginia. We had 13 good years with Virginia. Rakestraw was her married name. but her maiden name was Virginia Revere. And when I was born, I wasn't born Ed Hamilton. I was born Marvin Revere, but I had no birth certificate, because you don't get a birth certificate until somebody gets you, claims you, you see.
When we started with that first picture of you when you were 2.5.
It's the only baby picture
that you
I ever saw when I was growing up, but I never questioned it.
Right here.
But that's me, and that's Virginia before she gave me away.
So Bernadette and Kendra, helping him navigate all of that, what was that time like?
It was shocking, to say the least. But in any community, there are always people that know something. And even my grandmother at one time insinuated that Grandmama Amy was not his real mother. And then other people would tell things to Ed or say something, well, you know that's not your mother. So when we found that out, and we had to wait 2 years for the people to finally get him the papers so that he could see that he was adopted. You know, because you have to go down to the county clerks and file the papers. Why do you want to know? Health reasons, da-da-da-da-da. And we were blessed that we had Juanita White, and you all know Juanita, because that's what they do. They do genealogy. So she helped him discover that, hey, the lady that's named Revere is the mother of the lady that's filed the papers. So that's your grandmother, and then this other lady, Rakestraw, is probably your real mother. And then we made the connection with them. And they said that they always wanted, the one sister always wanted to know, why don't you send for him? Because that time, Oprah was having everybody find people on television. And so she, you know, so she wanted her mother to do that, but she wouldn't do it. She always said, well, if he wanted to find me, he would. But she said she always had dreams of angels dancing, little babies circling her head. And after she found Ed, you know, she said the dream stopped. But
Kendra, I'm so sorry.
Okay, but anyway, it was just a hard time. And I had to tell him, I said, look, Ed, they may be your brothers and sisters, but they're not going to be like Bernadette, Betty, Deborah, Cardell, Mintoy, Johnny, because you haven't lived through the experiences that they have lived through. You know, if they had a hungry period, you weren't there. If they were without water or heat, you weren't there. They have a bonding connection, you know. And here you popped up, but they knew about him because she had made it her job to always tell them that you all have an older brother out there. So they knew that he existed, but like I told them, it won't be like people that are all born together and living in the same household together.
Kendra, you're an adult when you find out. Do you remember that realization in your first conversation with your father after that happened?
You know, like Mom said, there were rumors. I remember hearing the rumors when I was probably high school age, when, you know, grown folks would talk. You know, how you're just kind of hanging out and around, and all of a sudden you hear something go like, wait a minute, what? Okay. You know, like, what is that about? But then, when he found her, and we went to Dayton, Ohio, because that's where they lived. They were from Dayton, Ohio. When we got there and all of them were there, the resemblance was just, it was just uncanny. And it was like, you know, the moment when you hear, you know, children who said they knew they were missing a part of themselves. He found that part. And it was just a really emotional time, I think, for all of us, because we were in shock. We were just like, are you serious? And she was still alive. And what I equated it to was his artistic ability. She played the piano, she crocheted, you know, she was always, you know, dibbling and dabbling with something. And I said, well, maybe that's where it came from. Because even his brother, Uncle Kevin, he's a musician, plays the guitar, you know. Then I was just like, well, now it makes sense for me, because I played violin, I played French horn for 11 years, you know, and I was like, now we know where this music ability and this creativity kind of came from. And so now it all makes sense. And so it was missing pieces, yeah. because I was always kind of wondering. I mean, you know, people who are born and they just have this natural talent, and then that natural talent can be fostered into this, you know, it's something, it came from somewhere, right?
We're getting ready to take a break and then have the special speakers come up. But before we do that, I wanted to give Bernadette and Kendra just a quick chance to say something about your husband and your dad here who we're honoring tonight. And this is your chance to do that.
Well,
What we doing? What we doing?
we're not doing anything. This is my heart, my sweet pea, my kush,
Yeah.
my best friend. My children couldn't have had a better father.
True.
Because if I said, no, I'm not buying you a tennis shoe, he would sneak and buy the tennis shoe. Because I would say, I'm gonna buy you a real shoe, a leather shoe, a shoe that fits your foot. And he would sneak and buy them a shoe. But he always cooked. He'd send me off to work every day with a breakfast and a lunch. And when I retired, I started cooking breakfast. He said, I don't eat this early. I'm like, what? I said,
Right.
but you all easy. Look, you all had to go to school, you had to go to work. I mean, homemade soup in my lunch, a sandwich, you know, but he doesn't eat now until like 11 o'clock maybe. Lunch, you know, breakfast is always brunch. It's always brunch. But he's a perfect companion to travel with. He keeps you laughing. Even when he's serious, we know what to do. We just move out of his way. And he still takes out the garbage. So he's a good man. He's a good man. And people would always say, you know, you ladies in the 60s, when you all got those men, you all got the best men around. There are nobody's left. He still opens doors. You know, he makes reservations and he always says, what do you want? What would you like to do? And I always say, well, what do you want? What do you like to do? So sometimes we have a good decision, sometimes we don't. We spend time in Nashville with our friend Larry all of our lives. We would go down there for the soirees and just party all day and party all night. Just have a good time. He's a good person, and he's a Christian person too. That was another thing. He liked church, and at the time when we were growing up, church was hot. You know, you went to church on Sunday, then you came back on Monday for a choir, and Wednesday for a Bible study, and Thursday for something else. But church was hot in the 60s when we were growing up. In Bible schools, you went to every Bible school in town. Every Bible school in town. Because they were on a rotating basis. How many of you all remember that? Let me see hands. Yeah, let me see hands. Okay, this week we're going to Brown Memorial. Next week we're going to go to St. Augustine. Next week we're going to be up at Bates, you know, all over town for Bible schools. That's understanding.
And Kendra, that is a tough act to follow.
No, you know, so like Mom said, you know, Dad was my little breakfast man. He would make my lunch. I would go to Brown School and I would have the best lunches, and people would be jealous of me because I would have these fat turkey, you know, like Dagwood sandwiches, you know, with bean sprouts and alfalfa sprouts and all kind of stuff on it. And kids would be like, Kendra, what in the world? What is that? They didn't even know half the stuff it was. So Dad has always just been he's been a friend for sure. And he's been a moral support and a spiritual support. I can't say anything bad about the guy other than the fact that, you know, like Mom said, when he gets in his, you know, when he has that moment where he's just really serious, we don't fool with him. And even now, I don't even live here now, so on the phone even, and my husband Horace can tell you, we'll be on the phone, and Dad will start going kind of veering off to the left, and I'm thinking, uh-oh, okay, well, love you, okay, all right, bye, and I'm hanging up, because he can be a little hot, but overall, you know, we've always been friends, and he's been the chaperone on field trips. He's been, you know, the driver to school every single day. He forgot to pick me up twice, because, you know, Brown School didn't have buses. So, you know, I was standing outside and I'm thinking, man, it's 3:30, where is he? Where is this man at? So he would, you know, he forgot me 2 times, but I forgave him for that, you know. But vacationing together, our first trip to Las Vegas was all of our first trips to Las Vegas. I wanted to go when I was 21. I turned 21. And I said, hey, we're going to go to Vegas. And Dad was like, I don't want to go. And I'm like, why not? It's Vegas. You know, and I can drink. I'm hanging out. And we get him there, and we got him a massage. Well, it was around Father's Day. And we got him a massage and this and that. So we've been back to Vegas I don't know how many times. And he loves to gamble, but he hates to put the money in the machine. You know, but he always ends up winning. You know, he's always been such a lucky guy. He's a lucky guy, too. You know, and he's just been blessed, and we've been blessed to be with him. And now, you know, Dad and I are becoming more so business partners in trying to preserve this legacy that he's created. You know, Ed Hamilton Studios and Visitor Center is my pet project. It is going to be what I give back, you know, to this community, what he's given, what I give back to the community. I want you all and the young people to have a sense of wonderment that I had every time I step through the doors of this studio. Like you said, it's a spiritual experience. It really is.
Well, you're both a testament that he's a lucky guy. And so are all these people here today. So we're going to take a short 5-minute break. And then when we're going to come back, we're going to hear from a number of people, and we're going to ask you all to keep it short. Kind of a toast with a memory of him. As we head to intermission, a couple more thanks this evening. Thank you to Louisville Public Media for its help in promoting tonight's program, sold out program. Thanks to the Geens Foundation for its support in all of our programming. And we also want to thank Old Forester Bourbon, because Ed's having one right now. And he used to run out and get that for his mother-in-law, so they were good enough to sponsor the bourbon tonight.
Were we supposed to say that?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to get you all seated front and center for these toasts, okay?
Okay, folks, welcome back to the program. When you are celebrating an American treasure like Ed Hamilton, not hard to find folks who want to raise a glass to him. Hopefully you've all visited the bar and you have a glass to raise. We are talking to fellow artists, friends, folks he's mentored, people who he has impacted along the way. These tributes could last for days, but we don't have that kind of time. So we have several folks who we've asked to come up and join us at the podium to talk about Ed, the Ed that they knew, and the impact that he has had on their lives.
They're going to be short toasts to Ed. You don't have to take a sip after each one because we have a lot of people who are going to come up here. We want to begin with a friend who goes way back. She's also a fellow artist. She doesn't know that she's first, but that's you, Elmer Lucille Allen. So come on up. Elmer, we're going to have you come up to the podium.
She's been laughing since she got here. Yes, she is.
First of all, I would like to say, this is incredible. And we go back, and I can tell you, in 1984, when Ed installed Booker T. Washington, I was there. I drove his family, and Miss Bernadette told me she didn't know that I had passed some of the places. I said, but you were asleep while I was driving. Here I brought today is a picture of Ed Hamilton standing in front of the remarks that was done at the Booker T. Washington installation. And I'm going to give them a copy. I'm going to have it photographed, and I'm going to give you all a copy. And thanks so very much for all that he has done. And we are still friends. And I have been to several of his installations. And I just like to say, he's a family man. He is always the same. And he respects me. And I'm 91 years old. Woo! And I'm still creating art. and just say thank you so very much for asking me to be the first person to talk about Ed. Thanks so very much.
Thank you, Elmer.
Elmer, thank you, and thank you so much for all you've done for the museum over the years. And everyone respects you.
Yes.
Hey, speaking of someone else who goes way back, a fellow sculptor who was with you in the picture from the Louisville Art Workshop, it's time for William Duffy.
Ed and I go way back. And I'm not going to stay long, but I think it's going to be a little bit more than 2 minutes.
Uh-oh.
71, summer of 71. There was a picture in the paper of Ed Hamilton. It's true, he had a big afro and those big glasses on. And I was just coming out of high school. We went to the same high school together. So, my art teacher, Patsy Griffith, encouraged me also to go to school because like Ed, I was a student at Shawnee High School and that was about it. But she saw the potential. So seeing Ed's picture in the paper, he had just been appointed the director of the old Louisville Art Workshop. So I say, oh, I thought I was the only one doing art. This guy's a director. And so I go to meet him. Well, the first person that I met was an old guy named G.C. Cox. And when I went to Mr. Cox, glad to meet you, he pulls out a big hunting knife or some sort. And so I'm backing out because I don't want any problems with that. So I got to meet Ed a little bit later on. And he actually showed me around and introduced me to Mr. Cox. And so I'd been with him since. 71 was the year that I'm in summer of 71. And to this day, we're still really good friends. He's a good person, truly. And I have one thing to do. You know, it's a little unusual, but I want to do this. Okay, so this is sort of like high school a little bit. Can everybody participate and give me an E? E. How about a D? D. The E is for energetic. The D is for dynamic. H. H. Historian. A. Amiable or friendly. M. Masterful. I. Introspective. L. Loving husband, father figure, all that. T. Tenacious. O. Organizer. And N. Necessary.
All right. Yes.
Put that all together, spells Ed Hamilton, my friend.
Next, right up front, a dynamic duo, Walter and Kathy Shannon. ENS Galleries.
Thank you.
We're going to pass a basket after we finish this sermon.
That means he's preaching. But we were honored. Walter and I are art dealers, and we sell Ed Hamilton's work all over the country. And what I love about Ed is his research. I mean, Ed comes to the table. He's not going to take on a project, as Walter has tried to talk him into doing something decorative. It's not happening if it doesn't have a history. And his pieces are so well researched down to the positioning of every piece of equipment on the Civil Rights Memorial and the backstory, because some people, when we're in New York and we tell them, well, you've seen the Civil Rights Memorial, the Civil War Memorial, that was historic because of all the monuments in Washington, D.C., that is the first public monument done by an African American, our own Ed Hamilton.
All right, Ed Hamilton. Well, she took my notes and said what I was going to say. But, you know, I've been knowing Ed since I moved here from California, and we've represented Ed's work a long time. Ed is one of the coolest dudes I've ever seen. And when he comes to the gallery, it's like, dude, you don't have to be this cool, but it's natural. And like Kathy said, we sell his work nationally, and it's easy because when you talk about the things that he's done, everybody knows about it. So it's pretty easy to get a check for his work. So thank you, Ed.
All right, another longtime friend is here, Ken Clay. What's up, Ken?
Such a pleasure to be here to say some words about my buddy, my friend, Brother Ed Hamilton. You know, I take some credit for something. Back in the 70s, I had an organization, a community-based organization that worked with local artists, you know. We did a lot of administrative stuff for them. My organization got a grant, received a grant from a major corporation here in the city. And I used part of that grant to take some local artists to New York. Louisville artists going to New York to try to immerse them in the culture of the art world in Black New York. You know, and Ed and Bernadette were amongst that group of people that we took. I was so impressed with Ed as we got on the plane. Ed was kind of walking up and down the aisle and stuff, you know, and looking everywhere. And I later found out that that was Ed's first airplane flight. So I take the credit for giving Ed an experience in the art of flying. At the studio in the 70s, I mean, it was a wonderful, wonderful place up on Shelby Street where the studio still remains. But I used to go up there almost 2 or 3 times a week. And I normally go around 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening, you know, where people are finished with their work. There was G.C. Cox up in the studio, Duffy and another one. And we'd gather, we kind of gather in Ed's space on the downstairs there and just sit in the midst of all of his artwork. Of course, we always had to have a little taste. So I would stop often and get a taste to bring him up. You know, half pints and pints were popular during that period of time, you know. Or Ed would jump out and go to the store down the street and get a piece, get some. Yeah, old Forster was a well. And on one occasion, I went up there and I saw Ed working on a piece, a very unique piece that I hadn't seen him deal with before, you know. And this piece was so intriguing to me that I went up to Ed and said, Ed, I said, I like that piece you're working on. I said, I want to buy it from you. And he said, okay. I said, how much? He told me and I paid him for it. With the condition, of course, that he'd be allowed to take it to exhibit it in other shows or exhibits that might be coming up. And on one occasion, Ed came to me and said, Ken, a corporation wants to buy that piece from me. And I want to know if you'll sell it back to me. I said, Ed, how much did they offer you? And he told me, I said, no way, baby, no way. No way. I said, they don't know the value of this work. And so I am so glad that I still have that piece in my house, and it's called Aqua Mother. Ed and I call it Aqua Mama. And we love that piece. We love that piece. Ed has always been the kind of guy that is just wonderful to be around. He's been a friend of, and the family, the whole Hamilton family has been a friend of Carol and mine for a number of years, and we're so pleased to be able to call them family. And you can't talk about Ed Hamilton unless you talk about Bernadette. They go together, y'all. They're one and the same. Thank you so much.
Our next guest helped Ed get some work in the early days, Bob Markert.
Early days and still working. I'm trying to get a piece that I'm doing for Norton Hospital done in time so I can help him with his next piece. Ed and I just love pushing clay together, and we have been doing so since the mid-'70s. The first time I saw Ed was when I went to Barney Bright's to take a look at the river horse, because I was putting it in the history of Louisville window that I was doing for the Riverfront Corporation on the Belvedere. And so my first time, Ed with plaster and clay and a big old fro, right? The next time was when Ed and G.C. Cox and Fred Bond and Duff were all working in the basement of my studio on Main Street. And so I'd go down and visit them. They'd come up and visit me. But he never brought that half pint. You didn't trust me?
Too many religious icons were up, Ed said.
Exactly. And what I did was I wrote something down on these cards, because normally a short talk for me would be 25, 30 minutes. At least that's what my parishioners say. But in another moment, Ed is the brother of my heart and has been since, we've done so many commissions together. But when Spirit of Freedom flashed up on here, Ed, and I remember that bright sunny day, and you unveiled that piece, the sun hit it and it shone like gold. And the people standing around, hundreds of people around, all they could do was, ooh, gasp, wow. It was a spiritual event, just unveiling it. Get a little bit, Ed, my brother of my heart. We have been connected since '75 with G.C. Cox, Duffy, Bond, and company. Early years of brash and heady creativity, junkology, and dreams. We gave image together of hard bronze born in soft clay, pushed in brotherhood, the brotherhood of art, and justice challenged and made real with names called Booker T, Amistad, Joe Louis, Limestone Menorah, MLK Jr., Faithful York, Frontier Families, that is here right now. Yes, the Spirit of Freedom with glory ringing in our ears, because it never stopped playing while we were working that clay. We stand today older and gray, and I sing your praises as clay shaper, vision maker, soft and gentle friend. You, artist and maker who shows us the image of God in yourself. Your husband and father, brother and friend. I remember the days of dark sculpted into an inner light. I rejoiced in your joy of finding your family lost. Your mother treated like the feisty lady she was, a queen by her loving son. I toast beautiful Bernadette, your wife, your rock, your companion on your journey. I salute you, humble pusher of clay, and I love you, Ed. Salute.
Now the founder of River City Drum Corps now has his own show as a visual artist at the Portland Museum. It is time for Ed White.
What I'm going to say is the man. It's amazing when you meet someone of his stature that he really doesn't know how big he is. I mean, he's a giant. And being that giant, as someone said, everything is, he is as cool as you ever want to be cool. So when you say cool, you think Ed Hamilton. And what I like about Ed more than anything is that his door is always open. And during my travels, when I was doing River City Drum Corps, we were all over the city. And I would say, come on, y'all, I'm gonna take y'all someplace. And we would take him, I would take him up to, but I said, there's one thing, can't touch nothing. Whatever you do, you can't touch nothing. You know, so you can imagine, I say, here, sometimes, especially my little, kids that I know touch a lot, when you come in, I want you to keep your hands in your pocket. Keep your hands in your pocket, because we can't pay for nothing that that gets broken. And so the greatest memory in my children, especially Albert, who is the director of the River City Drum Corps now, he talks about his experience of going in when Ed was doing the Civil War piece. And all during that summer, I would take them in. And whenever I would take them in, Ed would always give them water bottles and say, here, spray it. Just spray it. They would just spray the clay. They would just be so happy. They would just be so happy. And that happiness I still see in them whenever his name is mentioned, or ever something about his work. He said, well, I sprayed that. I sprayed it. Yeah, you remember when he took us up there? He said, we were just riding down. Miss Norty said, come on, I'm going to take y'all someplace. And still today, I do that. I say, come on, I'm going to take y'all someplace. And when I take them in, it's just like, and Kendra, when you build that place, it's going to be a gift to the world. And we need to find a collection, because there's plenty of money in Louisville to make that happen. to build that, because it's not about the money, it's about the potential of what it can do to change people's lives. That's what it's about. It's about changing lives. It's about changing little kids' life, just like we're looking at this new Supreme Court justice that we're getting ready to have. But here's the greatest thing about art. My mother had 5 boys. I did not get the sports gene. Did not get it. Wasn't buying no crayons, wasn't buying no paper. You know, you get this ball, I can take all y'all to one place, give y'all all one ball, and it's done. So I was either ahead by 20 or behind by 20 before I ever got to play. And now, being an artist, I didn't get the opportunity to become an artist until after I retired from the River City Drum Corps, till I was almost 65 years old. They're the smartest children and the brightest children and most energetic children that have ever been in my circle are artists. And so therefore, that's why that center is important, so that we can see the power of art. Because once art is created, it lasts forever. And Ed, you're gonna last forever.
Lanaya Roberts, let's bring her up next. She's got to head out in just a second. We want to make sure she has time to speak. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. How are y'all doing tonight? Let me just say, it is such a privilege and an honor to be able to display my love and affection and just pure gratitude to my Uncle Ed and Aunt Bernadette and even Miss Kendra. Like, I love y'all so much. Uncle Ed, he mentioned how important teachers are. And not only teachers, but people who are able to believe in you. You know, growing up in this day and age, you know, as a young Black woman, I didn't really feel special growing up. And this man right here literally made me feel special from the day he met me, the day I met him. I'll never forget with my first art class in my junior year of high school at Central High School, Mr. Robertson, he gave us a course on Ed Hamilton's work. I had never known that the sculptures that I grew up around when I was coming up as a kid downtown were made by a Black man that still lived here to this day. I was so blown away. And he told us how much Ed Hamilton would get paid for a sculpture. And I was just like, what? This man is rich. I was just like, you can make that much money off of being an artist? Like, I just never knew that. It was an amazing exposure just learning about Uncle Ed from the course that I had that one day in high school. So when 2 weeks or so later, Mr. Robertson says that there's an amazing art show going on at the High Art Institute of Bob Thompson's work, he mentioned that Ed Hamilton was most likely gonna be there. And I was just like, oh, that's so cool. And he pointed me out in class. He was just like, Lanaya, you need to go to that show, and you need to meet Ed Hamilton. And I was just like, this famous man, what is he gonna want to do with me? Like, and that's the thing, once again, that belief, right? Mr. Robertson, he believed in me and my abilities, and he knew as a white male teacher, he could only give me so much, and that I was gonna need somebody that looked like me to really propel me forward in my career. So I went to this show, and I saw Ed Hamilton looking sharp, which made it even more intimidating because I'm just like, and he's cool, like, dang. Famous, rich, cool, dang. Anyway, so I was just like, man, I don't know. I don't know how to go up to him. I was 15, 16 years old. Finally, I get the courage. I went up to him. There was a little line to talk to him. And finally, it was my turn, and I was just like, hi, Mr. Hamilton. My name is Lanaya Roberts. I go to Central High School. I have some of my art on my phone. Would you like to see? And he was just like, yeah, sure. I was just like, okay. And then, so I showed him the folder, and he's scrolling. He was just like, dang, girl, you good. I was just like, thank you so much. And then I asked him, I was just like, now this might seem weird, but I would love the opportunity to come to your art studio. And he was just like, yeah, you can come. Here's my email, write it down. So I wrote down his email, and I go to his studio, and he sees my work, and he's just like, hold on. If you want to come back here, there's one thing you got to do for me. I was just like, okay, I definitely want to come back. So what you want me to do? He goes and he gets his book that he wrote, his autobiography. And he said, if you want to come back here, you better read this book. You can't come back here if you don't read it. Man, I zoomed past that book in weeks, and it was history from there. That was a decade ago. I was a junior in high school 10 years ago, and this man has literally changed my life. If it wasn't for having Uncle Ed's freaking confidence and belief in me, it's one thing to have a teacher, someone who sees you, but to have someone that you look up to, see your light and see your potential. And even when you have doubt and you can't see it, and maybe they don't even know that you can't see it, but they just consistently see that light and that potential and how much you have to offer. As a young Black woman, coming from especially a father figure in my life, I didn't grow up around artists. That was not my reality. So to be able to have a family like Aunt Bernadette and Uncle Ed show me the beauty of life as an artist and how it can be if you just never give up, even through the struggles, it's so inspirational. So thank you for always being a light, and thank you for always believing in me. I love you.
This is pretty good, isn't it? This is good. Oh, I love it. All right, our next artist has murals that can be seen all around Louisville, including upstairs in our West of 9th Race, Reckoning, and Reconciliation exhibit. And I hope if you didn't get a chance to go through that before tonight's program, that you come back and go through that exhibit. It's very important to the very fabric of this city. Victor Sweat.
All right.
How's everybody doing? All right. I don't think I'm going to say anything new that hasn't already been said. I just want to thank Ed from the bottom of my heart. I know you've won numerous awards, and you're going to keep winning and keep overachieving because of your talent and things like that. The thing I'm most impressed by and thankful for is your willingness to overcome your adversity and things that happen behind the scene. I mean, you have a beautiful spirit that you shared your light with us and things, and I'm thankful for it, along with your coolness. Thank you.
Lamont Collins, founder and CEO of Roots 101.
Well, you knew 1 minute wouldn't work with me, so this is about Ed. Before about Ed, it's about Black excellence. Ed has always shown Black excellence, and Roots 101 is about Black excellence. I remember coming to Frazier when we were located right next to Frazier. I'm sitting in the room with Andy, and I said, Andy, I'm gonna start a museum that tells a story 365 days a year. And he looked at me, he said, okay. Go for it. And I did. But let's talk about Black excellence. That's what Ed Hamilton and Bernadette symbolize in the city. But when I sit and look at the city, I see Black excellence everywhere. I see Black love. I see the Douglas family. I see the Clay family. I see the Tuckson family. I see the Evans family. I see Black love, Black excellence. And that's what we try to show. We say legacies matter. There's no greater legacy, no greater star than Ed Hamilton in Louisville, Kentucky. Ed will come in the museum, my biggest supporter. And you know what he tells me? He said, baby, you got something here. he says, you got something here. And he'll come, he'll stay an hour. He brings people with him. And he just encourages me so that he knows that when it's a ministry, you can't let it go. It goes from history to the future. Because we're not teaching history, we're teaching future. We're teaching kids to look at themselves different than what they ever looked at themselves before. Because Ed Hamilton showed us how to do that. Black excellence showed us how to do that. And when I had an opportunity to come talk to Ed, and he comes to the museum all the time, he'll bring people with him. But he's the original Iceman, the original Iceman. He comes and supports you. And now I found out he's rich, I need some money. Because, I haven't heard that yet. But he'll come and drink my bourbon and all that, but you got to drop a check, brother. That's what you got to do. But we talk all the time, and I even got the place where I'm talking to Kendra, and she's become like a little sister. And I just love the man. I love everything about him. He's so humble to so many people. And I could call Ed and say, I got a kid you want to meet. Can you meet? Yeah, bring him on over. Or come on over. That's beautiful. Emma Louise, always supportive. And I just love all of you guys. But before I leave, we talk about his studio being angelic, right? Spiritual, and it is. But you better bring some bourbon in there. Yeah, you better bring some spirits, because he's going to put that jazz music on, he's going to have that drink before you go any further. Yeah, is it right? And then I heard you guys talking about, we had interviewed a few years ago, and he gave me the story about his mom. He felt comfortable enough to tell me that story. And when he did that, I knew he trusted me. And he'll say, hey, son, or I don't know what he called me, but he'll call me something. But then I just realized he treats me like a son. And then I found out the day his son was born, January 21st, and I was born January 21st. Found that out today. Well, I'll take the second. I heard 21st. So I'm claiming his son, so y'all ain't taking it back. I'm claiming that one, right? But Ed, I love you. I got something for you. We were presented an Old Forester brand bottle to Roots 101 in Colby, Kentucky bourbon enthusiast. And we know that the Brown family has always been an open heart to the black community. And now it's an open bottle for you. This is the first one out of 101 bottles that were made by by Old Forester. And I got to give it to Ed. And he's going to take it, I guarantee you. Yeah, he's going to get it, right?
Ed's a happy man.
Lamont, you found a way to get him up out of his seat. Well done. All right, time for spoken word artist Hannah Drake, who has worked with Ed recently on the Unknown Project and also has some work upstairs in our West of 9th exhibit. Hannah.
If any of this is wrong, Mr. Hamilton, just go with it. Because I Googled. A sculptor shapes clay, stone, marble, wood, and other materials into 2- or 3-dimensional art. Some sculptors carve out stone or marble or weld pieces of metal together into statues. Sculptors also carve into walls or other surfaces, a technique called relief. The 4 main techniques that exist in sculpting are carving, assembling, modeling, and casting. Thank you, Mr. Hamilton, for using your life as a chisel to carve out space for artists that look like me. Thank you for using your life to assemble art across this nation, from Booker T. Washington in Hampton, Virginia, to the Spirit of Freedom in Washington, D.C., to York right here in Louisville, Kentucky. Thank you for interrupting the public art landscape and carving out our stories and our history. Thank you for reminding this nation that our leaders deserve their legacies to be dipped in bronze. Thank you for being a model of an artist with integrity, reminding artists to practice good stewardship, to walk tall, to stand up straight, and keep our eyes on the prize. Thank you for casting vision for other artists coming behind you, reminding us to use our art in ways that disrupt the piece, that raise questions, that challenge long-held beliefs, that opens the door for conversation, learning, and growth. You, Mr. Hamilton, have used your hands to carve your name into history. We honor you tonight for being an artist par excellence. Thank you.
Another artist and sculptor in the house, one who you've collaborated with on many occasions, Forrest Boone.
Hey, everybody. Ed Hamilton. It really is an honor and a privilege to be here. It's an honor and a privilege to call you my friend. This man is truly a diamond in the rough. And I've known him, we go back 21 years, back before he was just cool back then. I didn't know, but somewhere along the line he became cool and rich. Yeah. And but it always wasn't like that. I remember when he first sort of took me on as a pet project right after graduate school, and I guess he saw something in me that he believed in me before I could believe in myself, which was amazing. And he's a mentor. And he's an inspiration to so many people here in Louisville. I really haven't heard too much about that, but he mentored me, and he certainly inspired me. But I knew him back when he still lived in the hood, like before he had the fancy nautical themed house on the river that he's got now. And I remember it was the first time I ever rode in a car with him, and we're driving along, and we had just started the York maquette for the York piece together, and he said, "Wait, stop the car, stop the car." I said, "What?" He said, "Back up." And I backed up, what the heck? And he said, "Is your trunk empty?" He said, "Pop the trunk." And he grabbed his drawing table out of the scrap pile. I guess it was junk day. And he threw it in the back of my trunk, and I thought, damn, I thought he had a little bit of money at least, you know? So I was starting to question, like, do I really want to collaborate with this guy? And then we go to present the York piece, the maquette. If you guys didn't know, some people realize, but the 36,000-pound sculpture of a monolith that York stands on. That's actually my sculpture. But when we went to present that maquette, I learned something really valuable from Ed, and I'll never forget this, because we're walking in the door with the piece, with the maquette, and it wasn't covered up, and he wanted to have like this unveiling. I guess it was Armstrong was in office then or whatever, and he looks over, and there was a wastebasket over here, and he empties it out and grabs the trash bag, puts the trash bag over top of York, and we bring it in around this big mahogany table, and everybody gathers around, and their expectations are lowered because it's a black trash bag, you guys. This is a very valuable business lesson for me as an up-and-coming sculptor. So when he pulled off that trash bag, the whole room lit up. It was like, hallelujah. And they couldn't believe it. It was, their expectations were lowered, and we're walking out, and I'm like, man, that's a genius. That's reverse psychology. And you did that on purpose, and you specifically planned the black trash bag to lower their expectations, and then your piece would look. But the thing is, you guys, is that's just Ed. That was no business strategy. That's just how down to earth this man really is. And so when I say he's a diamond in the rough, there's if you were to beam down sunlight and you had a hunk of coal in one hand and you had a diamond in the other hand, this would be Ed Hamilton, and it would reflect the light, because everybody here tonight and throughout this city is the light that this man reflected, and it's reflected in my soul. I love you, man. Yeah.
All right, now Bob Douglas. Professor Emeritus U of L.
What is that noise? I don't know what that noise was. It's a... Are y'all worried how long this is going to be? Is that okay?
I'm probably the only person in the room that has known Ed the longest, because I'm the oldest. I'm 88 years old. And yeah, she's older, but she didn't known Ed. And I'm here to help Ed out. He ain't rich. If you figure out what he makes an hour, it's about $3 an hour. He needs some help, y'all. We are here to honor and celebrate our friend and colleague. Why? Why has he continued in the time-honored tradition, in a time-honored tradition that's connected to his people? Let's recall the tradition and see. African shaman, a holy individual, say that there are two traditions which are followed by African people. And these traditions are so old that they go back before the limits of chronological time. And they originated so long ago that they came out of the breath of God. These traditions are to teach or instruct one another and to praise and celebrate God or one another. Also connected to these two traditions is to seek out those persons who are sent among African people who have special gifts that reveal these traditions. From the very earliest times, the ancestral mothers were charged to seek out those who are sent among us. The ancient mothers, the oldest women of the group, be they grandmothers or grandaunts, all gather around the newborns and peer into their newborn face and ask, "Are you the one?" Are you the one? This practice in Africa continued for eons. This practice may have been broken because of our separation from Mother Africa, but this spiritual ritual continues to take place wherever the daughters and the sons of African diaspora have been dispersed. The ancestral mothers in spiritual form still come and ask the newborns, "Are you the one?" So in those communities where the actual ancestors, the spiritual ones, come back again and again. In the past, it may have been to seek out, to set us free, to tell us where to go, to tell us how to hold on a little longer, or to pray a little harder. In recent times, the ancestral mothers asked the newborns, she or he, Are you the one? Are you the one to come and brighten our spirits with your musical art? To use in physical art form and to perform feats never seen before? Are you the one to glorify our lives in ways yet unimagined? To give us hope, to inspire our young, or just to make us proud? And reveal to us and others our potential for progress and greatness. If our Ed, in your estimation, have did any of these which the African traditions proclaim, then you know who visited him at birth when he was born, and you know what they said to him. And if those of you who want to know more about all of this mystery about African people, I'm going to be giving a couple of lectures at Roots One this spring, and he'll tell you when to come and where to sit.
All right, we're closing in. Tamina Karam is next. Come on up.
Hi, everyone. I'm honored to be here. I was honored to be asked to speak. Ed, you know I love you. Bernadette, you know I love you too. And Kendra, I've never met you, but it's lovely to meet you this time. I'm a sculptor, and I've been a foundry hag for a long time. That's how I met Ed. I was working at the Bright Foundry in the late 90s, and Ed would come rolling in with his little cap on and that really cool car, and he was just so friendly and so down to earth and so kind and nice to everybody, no matter how lowly we were in the wax room or slinging rubber on these things, or, you know, we get dirty and messy. Bernadette didn't even recognize me. She said, I didn't recognize you without all that dust all over you. Around the time Ed was doing York, I was still at the foundry, at the Bright Foundry, and he was running a little behind. And so Jet Bright kind of farmed me out to Ed. And I got a chance to do a little bit of sculpting with him, and you know, he kind of took me under his wing, and he's been a wonderful mentor and a wonderful person to learn from and to be around. He's very generous with his knowledge. He doesn't keep any kind of secret, like there's some, you know, magical thing that happens, even though there is. You know, you go into Ed's studio, it is magical. And I'd go in to help him work on something, and he'd say, you gotta watch this video. We need to listen to this, and you gotta get in the mood, you know? So he would create the space for his work in every possible way. And I learned from him that I could do that for myself. I could create this space for my work. And I so appreciate you, Ed. And I really appreciate you believing in me and letting me help you with your work, and just being around you and seeing how you are. It is inspirational. Thank you.
All right, we couldn't let the evening pass without having a man, longtime friend of Ed's, who wrote the foreword to his book. Bing Davis is here tonight with his wife Audrey right here. It was supposed to be a surprise. It was a wonderful surprise at the beginning of the evening. In fact, they spoke on the phone tonight, and Bing was at 21C, just like playing it off. Not letting Ed know that he was actually in town, but here to share some stories, Bing and Audrey. Being here.
Thank you. I want to thank all of you for being here tonight. This is a great occasion that you will never forget. I know I will never forget. I met Ed many years ago, and before I met him, I was told about him in 1968 by someone from Louisville who came to Dayton when I was teaching in a public school there, and said, you need to meet one of our artists in Louisville called Ed Hamilton. This was a lady by the name of Mrs. Huddleston. And she told me about Ed. She said, you guys have the same spirit. You both love to work with young people. And you got to meet Ed. I hadn't met him as yet. Then Anna Bishop told me. And then they began to have exhibits at the Actors Theater here for African American artists. So I had a chance to meet Ed. And I understood exactly why they said, you need to meet Ed Hamilton. It's been a joy, and he's been a great friend. That was in '68, and then in '70. And I know coming down here, they embraced me, and I had a chance to meet Duffy, and I think of Gloria, Yaya Bivens, and other artists who were in the area. And then he took me to Mr. Cox's house to meet him as well. So it's been a great journey. In 1970, I joined the National Conference of Artists. In '73, I think Ed, in '73, I think shortly after Ed got involved. But I want you to know that what he has done here in Louisville, he's done around the world. He's inspired all of us. And everyone he has met, he has left a touch of greatness with. One thing you did not know, and I thought about this, is that in April of 1983, no way you can know this, a gentleman by the name of Dr. Arthur E. Thomas, Vice President of Central State University, says, we're going to either phase out our art program or build it up. Would you come and do a refinement for our art program? So I did. But I knew what it would take would be bringing other artists. So the Afro-Cobra artists like Nelson Stevens, Jeff Donaldson, and then certainly from Louisville, Ed Hamilton. He came in April and worked with our young people. And then he is still a legend on the campus of Central State University. And Ed, thank you for what you came and shared in helping us build that program. I want you to know the Board of Regents now has declared it a center of excellence. All right.
I only came up because I was directed to get up here. But I would be remiss if I didn't let everybody know, but you already do know. You have a jewel, a diamond, as you say, a rare one here, plus one. You do. And the relationship, when I first met them, I felt like a sisterhood. Honestly, I really felt that between Bernadette and myself, to the point that when you ever come, you can stay at my house. You know, I'll open anytime, really. But what is remarkable about Ed and my mate, what I connect them to and what I love so much about them is they are academically strong, but they do what they do, and they do it in Black excellence. And they know it, and they want everybody to know it too. So that's why they do it so well. So, and to share it without hesitation. My husband shares, and I love that about him, that he does share. That's what you do. And that's why I felt so connected to you, because you're a giver, you're a sharer, you've got God's love, you're giving it all over the place. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
I don't know if Ed has told you as yet, but Dayton is very special to him, special to me, and special to us. The mayor, our new mayor, Brother Jeffrey Mims, can't wait for you to come. Ed Hamilton, the city of Dayton is working hard to raise the funds for your next great piece. Ed has been selected. He's agreed to come and create a life-size bronze sculpture of the 150th anniversary celebration of Paul Laurence Dunbar.
So we're breaking a little news here tonight, huh? Congratulations on that. As we wrap up, we do want to say one more thing. There's one more story we want to tell you about tonight. As you've heard from all of the people in this room, Ed is always helping young artists. You've heard that. Well, it came to Ed's attention recently that there was an incredibly talented young artist at Doss High School. One of his teachers has close connections to Forrest Boone, who spoke this evening. She reached out to Forrest. Forrest reached out to Ed, and well, you know the rest. Ed made some calls. Fingers crossed, that student will apply and we hope attend the Kentucky College of Art and Design. We have two representatives from the school here tonight, if you don't mind standing. Maura Scott Payne, the president, and Joyce Ogden, the dean.
Also attending tonight, the teacher at Doss, Lindsay Thompson, who first saw the work of De'Aaron Howlett and took action. Lindsay and De'Aaron, if you wouldn't mind coming up here and just sharing a few brief comments about this opportunity.
And this is some of De'Aaron's work.
Good evening, everyone. I speak for both De'Aaron and myself. We're both really excited to be a part of this event. It's been amazing just to see the work of, Ed's entire lifetime, how many people he has helped, and it's really exciting just to see what lies in De'Aaron's future as an artist and as a citizen. And, I saw him in class just with the sketchbook in his hand at all times. He's always sitting there. He has his work on one side of his desk, but he's at the same time just doing his thing. His passion is drawing, and he does beautiful portraits. And as I sat there and asked him about his artwork, I found out he's never even taken a formal art class. So this is what he's putting out without any training whatsoever. So I shared his work with Forrest, and, Forrest knew exactly what to do. He said, I'm going to put him in contact with Ed Hamilton. So Ed, thank you so much for, making those connections and setting him on a path where he's going to have a brilliant, beautiful future. I don't know if De'Aaron believed in himself or if he knew, the talent that he possesses, but I think sitting in here in this room tonight hopefully lets him see, the possibilities that are there for him. So, thank you all.
Yeah. Thank you.
De'Aaron, congratulations and best wishes. We will be following. And Ed, thank you for your loaning your generous talents and being so encouraging of young people. You are a treasure as a human being, as an artist, as you've heard here tonight. And I'm so humbled just to be in your presence and be part of this wonderful crowd to give you this tribute tonight.
Yeah, it has really been an honor to host you. And another program Thursday night, if you want more of this, Zip This, we've got more on Thursday night at Bellarmine as part of the Veritas program. Thank you for partnering with us in that. You absolutely put the cool in cool Kentucky, so thank you very much.
Ed Hamilton.
Ed Hamilton.
Oh, wait, let me get a microphone. Larry, can you hand me that? Oh, yeah. Corey, can she go up to that one? Bernadette's got something to say. We cannot leave until Bernadette.
Walter's my best friend. Number one, I would just really like to thank everybody for showing up tonight. And if you know anybody that couldn't make it, you can tell them what a wonderful time that they missed. But I would like for the girlfriends and the boyfriends to line up over here so that we can take a photo. And I would like to remind Ken Clay that on that first plane trip that we took, I don't remember the airline, but it was a special trip in that you could go for a Valentine and one ticket. And it was after Valentine's Day, but I was saving cards back in the day. And so I had a Valentine's card, and all we had to do was buy one ticket to get to New York with you all during that time. And it was a wonderful trip for our first plane trip. We've been flying ever since. But the girlfriends and the boyfriends, if you all would line up over there, Kendra has a photographer here, then we would like to take a picture of this event. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you all.
Thank you.